This is Beyond the Wire, a World War I first-person shooter developed by Redstone Interactive and published by Offworld Industries. And if that name sounds familiar, well, it should. Offworld Industries is the same team that makes Squad, but unlike Squad, if you were to play a game of Beyond the Wire today, well, you'd just find a barren wasteland. In fact, if you were to take a look at the Steam charts right now, not a single person is even playing Beyond the Wire. This makes Beyond the Wire quite possibly the loneliest milsim in gaming, but why is that? On the surface, this game looks good, the graphics seem fine, and it looks like there's a variety of weapons, factions, maps, and even vehicles. I mean, even games like Izonzo or Verdun, although they might not be the most popular of games, they still have a consistent player base of at least a few hundred people, so what happened? Why is Beyond the Wire different? Why isn't anyone playing this game? Okay, I've been logging into this game like every day this past week, and this is the first time that I've seen multiple people on one server. So there's 2 people here. I should be able to talk to at least one of them. Jason Gonzo. Maybe. Oh, hello? Are you an actual player playing this game? No way. I'm gonna do some call outs. See if I can help him out. All right, come on, we got him. In the tree line, Jason, the tree line. Right here. Coming over the trenches. Get your rifle up, soldier. Come on, Jason. No, you know how to use that rifle. Shell shock has gotten to him. Oh. I'd originally planned on this video just being a deep dive into Beyond the Wire and maybe why it died, but in doing my research, I stumbled upon a group of players who have been meeting every single Saturday for over 2 years just to play this dead game. Think of it kind of like a pickup game of basketball with your buddies that you do each week, or maybe your weekly D&D session where your friends and that same time of the week hasn't changed for years. It's kind of the same thing. These people, despite the entire community around them just disappearing, they see something in this game, and they just can't let it die. So I joined them, and we played some of the most populated rounds of Beyond the Wire the game has seen in years. But before we get to how the game is today, we first need to do a quick history on how we got here, because honestly, the game really did have a good shot at succeeding. The closed alpha for Beyond the Wire dropped in 2020, and with that came a bunch of hype around the game. I personally played it at that time, and I genuinely had fun. I enjoyed it. I found it to be a good mix of fast-paced action, while also allowing opportunities for more tactical or strategic thinking. Also, most importantly, it was grounded in the technology of World War I, with period-appropriate weapons and uniforms, beautiful maps, and 100-player servers. It checked off all the requirements for a good, entertaining military shooter and seemed way more appealing for World War I gamers than the jankier titles like Verdun or the arcadey gameplay of something like Battlefield 1. Gameplay revolved around a trench tug-of-war mode called Assault, and both sides would take turns attacking or defending their sectors, and in true World War I fashion, squad leaders had whistles where they could lead charges across no man's land, as well as having a commander that could call in smoke, artillery, and even gas attacks to support their troops. For an alpha, the combat and gameplay was surprisingly good, but what really made Beyond the Wire stand out was its melee system. You had your choice of trench clubs, bayonets, swords, and more, and there was directional melee combat, allowing you to swing overhand, underhand, left, right, block. Now, yeah, it was a bit complicated, but it was still an alpha game, and when you did get the hang of it, it felt very fun and incredibly immersive for what we all imagined trench combat to really be like. However, despite the game and development process looking pretty successful from just a casual viewer who saw it on the Steam store page, the population of Beyond the Wire had taken a nosedive. On the game's alpha release, they peaked to about 3,000 concurrent players, but plummeted to just 100. Now, population dips weren't entirely unexpected since the game was in active development, but that was still a shocking drop. The game really just had a bunch of problems. In addition to the normal early access stuff like stability and bugs, performance was just awful. Players were struggling to get minimum FPS to just run it without any huge hitches, and many people had complaints of hard crashes to desktop. Despite wanting to play this game and help during alpha testing, many people simply couldn't physically get it to run. And honestly, that wouldn't necessarily have been that big of a problem. Gamers are familiar with buggy alphas, betas, and even 1.0 launches, but Beyond the Wire released on Steam at $35. $35 is crazy expensive for an early access game, and given that high price tag, players are going to expect some level of stability, and instead they were rewarded with a game that looked good in the screenshots, but when they loaded up, it literally couldn't even work. On top of that, another glaring issue was that there were no official servers. Not only did players have to purchase this $35 game themselves, but they then had to rent a server for up to $100 a month in order to host games so other players could actually play. Many communities who hosted these game servers soon saw their player base refund the game or leave it uninstalled in their Steam library. So without anyone playing it, they shut their servers down. And that created an even bigger problem, almost like a chicken or the egg thing, right? So without players, there'd be no servers, but without servers, there would also be no players. Despite development promising optimization fixes, it would be hard to really get people to spend hundreds of dollars to host servers that nobody was going to play. They couldn't just bank that this next update would finally work. They're going to be out literally at least $100 a month just hoping. Despite the population issues, the devs continued on, and by 2021, you could play as the French, Germans, and Americans, and the devs even released a roadmap stating that later that year they would be releasing the British Expeditionary Forces, the famed American Harlem Hellfighters, and 3 more maps. Despite its issues, things were looking extremely positive for a niche alpha game, and as development progressed, they even added a more immersive feature called sections. Players were no longer limited to just being a commander or a squad leader, but could now lead a specific section like an infantry section, a grenadier section, engineers, you could create a machine gun detachment, and even an artillery battery. These section leaders would have special abilities like increased sprint speed for charging across no man's land, or they could even lay emplacements like MG nests or artillery positions so that their squad members could use them. Even with all these new features and supposed stability and optimization fixes, the gamers never really came back. As time went on, it seemed as if the development team became a little worried about these low player numbers and started to change things. Instead of sticking with their more hardcore, gritty design philosophy, gameplay changes, including weapon handling and melee changes, became the forefront of every new update. Now, I don't want to get bogged down in the details here, but the game essentially just became a lot easier. Hipfire became easier, so killing people while wearing your gas mask was easier, meaning that it was harder to charge across no man's land and then get into the enemy's trench. And if you did get into the enemy's trench, melee combat was now easier, and you could now infinitely hold down the block button and never take any damage from melee attacks. These changes were obviously done in hopes to appeal to a wider audience, but ironically, the opposite happened. By making it easier to kill enemies charging across no man's land, that fundamental fun gameplay loop fell apart, and since you could no longer hold off sections of trenches with your melee weapons, that also fell apart. The fundamental game design from the initial closed alpha test was gone. By 2022, the game launched into 1.0 release with 10 factions, including the Anzacs and Canadians, vehicles were even added, and there was a completely new customization and progression system. Over 450 cosmetics were included to give players something to grind towards, and a new experience system was introduced during games, which would allow you to upgrade your kit to in-game things like a tank, a flamethrower, or even veteran loadouts with much more powerful weaponry. Let's be honest here, this shortened development window going from a closed alpha in 2020 to 2 years later going to a fully released 1.0 game should have been a huge red flag. If you're familiar with Milsims or tactical shooters, you know that these games take ages, years to finish, or even just get to a beta state. Squad, for example, released into alpha back in 2016. It took 3 years to get to a beta, and then 1 additional year after that to launch into 1.0. The reality is 1.0 is literally just a build number, but consumers attach very real expectations to this number, and if you don't live up to that, then your game is just going to be dead in the water from release, and it's almost impossible to recover from that. Unfortunately, that's pretty much what happened with Beyond the Wire. There are plenty of examples of the failures of Beyond the Wire, but here's another one to really drive the point home. The minimum required graphics card for Beyond the Wire was a GTX 1060, but there were players that had 20 and 30 series cards that still couldn't have consistent FPS, and they would still be crashing to desktop. Servers would constantly crash and kick out everybody, and as a result of all this, on release day of the 1.0 game, 140 players. That was it. Even a free weekend couldn't save this game, only attracting 300 concurrent players a month later before slowly trickling off into obscurity. There were a few post-launch hotfixes to address optimization and some bug fixing, but the last real update to the game was December 2022, with the addition of the Passchendaele map and bots. And that was it. The dev team just kind of disappeared. There was a happy holidays message that was sent out at the end of 2022, and the devs did make one final hotfix to the game 7 months later in July 2023, but literally not one thing else. This is just what blows my mind, all right? There's been no official communication from Offworld Industries or Redstone Interactive since July 2023. There hasn't been a Steam news update, there's not been a Discord announcement, there hasn't even been a Discord chat message from anyone on the team, nothing. Literally the only posts about Beyond the Wire are the extremely discounted sales that pop up throughout the year, which at times bring the game down to $2.50, which is arguably too expensive for a game that has almost no servers and nobody playing it. This is why I was so surprised to stumble upon a group of players who, for whatever reason, for how poorly they've been treated and abandoned by the developers, they're still trying to keep this game alive. Every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, the Reserve Infantry Regiment number 73 hosts a play session for Beyond the Wire. Some days they have 3 people, some days a dozen, some days just one shows up, but every Saturday for over 2 years, they've been coming out to play, so I took a few hours to join them. Although clunky at times, Beyond the Wire still holds up remarkably well for an unfinished game, and since everyone on the server is now a grizzled veteran of it, the rounds were incredibly fun with section leaders and commanders leading charges and firing off gas attacks. But the cracks definitely showed. For the first hour or so, I couldn't seem to get rid of invisible soldiers, with both friendlies and enemies turning into floating straps and weapons, making the entire experience more comical than immersive. I eventually figured it out, but even despite these issues, the gunplay was still fun. The players were fun to play with, the maps were beautiful, and it was just very refreshing. With nearly 40 players in the server, we were playing some of the most populated rounds the game has seen in months, maybe even years, but I still just couldn't get it. The dev team abandoned these guys. They left them on red, they washed their hands of the entire project, and then just disappeared. So why are they doing this to themselves? Why are they holding out hope? Why are they keeping this game alive?
Do people like randomly jump on throughout the week? Do you ever see someone not on a Saturday?
There are people who trickle in randomly, but it's usually only like 1 to 5 players. Just kind of random. But we keep so that people can see that there's, you know, matches on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So that's how we consistently have people joining. So you know, we're doing what we can. But there are also Sunday games that we do every once in a while. What we do is we have 100 bots on one team.
Oh, that's
kind
of cool.
All the humans join the other team, so it's humans versus bots. We usually don't have like too many people joining, like usually 1 to 10 people. But it's actually fun because you know you have to actually strategize and like figure out how to stomp the bot hordes out.
Yeah, right.
We find ways to have fun. I think the most disappointing thing about the development was that there was a roadmap that they just never finished or addressed. It was just left in the dust. There was 0 announcements. They didn't say anything. they just left the game completely on radio silence. It's really a stain on OWI's reputation, and I think that's the reason why they don't like advertise the game anymore. They're kind of ashamed of it. And it's a perfectly good IP. You can work with this, you know, if they wanted to, they could, you know, create microtransactions, or they could experiment with it if they wanted to. But no, they just leave it like $10 on Steam. I guess they make enough money to justify just leaving it like that. And honestly, what they really just need to give us now is SDK. Give the community the SDK. Let us patch the game ourselves. Let us mod the game. That's what we need. Give us the SDK, like, fine, you know, abandon the game, but give us the SDK at least so we can work on it ourselves. There are a lot of people who are still very passionate, you know, about this game, and it's a shame to just leave them in the dust.
At least the keys are on fire. Makes it a little bit.
The fact that this was shipped like this is wild.
I know, dude, and this was OWI's work too.
After playing with these guys and talking with them, it seems like they all really truly believe that Beyond the Wire is special. The devs were able to do something different, and they haven't been able to get this type of gameplay anywhere else. The devs understood what it took to make a game fun and immersive. They were passionate about making a World War I game, but for whatever reason, it seemed along the way, business got in the way of that passion. Many of these players argue that the game's development took a sharp turn about halfway through, somewhere around 2021, and although we may not ever know what really happened from behind the scenes of Beyond the Wire, something obviously forced the devs' hands into making the game that was eventually released into 1.0. I think if you were to go back and tell them in 2020 that in 2022 their game was going to be a fully released 1.0 game with tanks and cosmetics, they would have laughed at you. Now, after playing with these guys on Saturday and researching for this video, I'm really in two minds about this whole thing. On one hand, I think Beyond the Wire is a game that is fun for what it is, despite having very obvious flaws. And if you are interested in World War I, then wait for a sale, buy it for a couple bucks, and then start marking your calendar for every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. But on the other hand, I also feel like rewarding the team for abandoning their community, even if it is just a couple dollars, I feel like that sets a really bad precedent. Gamers understand early access. We understand that game development is tough and things happen, and anyone in the tactical shooter space knows that projects come and go, and that's okay. It might suck if you kickstarted a game that never materialized and you kind of just lose out on 20 or 30 bucks, but we all understand that it's a competitive industry and things just happen. Things that you don't even expect to happen, and that's just life. But what really sucks is the ghosting, the abandoning of the community. At this point, the players who do remain with Beyond the Wire aren't even asking for much. They want to be able to make the game themselves. They want to mod it. They want to fix all the problems that the game was left with. And they just want some closure. As simple, hey, we screwed up, we're sorry, but honestly, development for this game is ended and we're done. I think a statement like that would go a long way to these guys, since many of the people I talk to now find it quite hard to trust the studio that not just abandoned them, but are continuing to take money during these sales and put it to other projects. I don't even fault them for that. They see this game still on the Steam store page with no updates, no announcement that development has ended, selling the game at deep discounts, and then making other games. They're going to call it how it is. They have every right to. I left this play session thinking that this entire thing just really felt like the early days of internet gaming. And if you grew up in the early 2000s, you might remember LAN bars or internet cafes, and this whole thing just had that same type of vibe. Beyond the Wire doesn't have seasons. It's not a battle royale. There's no grind to everything. It's just a platform where friends are coming together to play and hang out with each other. Week in and week out, these people are coming back to see familiar faces to chat about what's going on in their life, and then the backdrop just happens to be the trenches of World War I. It's very real, it's very personal, and I can't fault these guys at all for sticking with it. They're making very real friendships on a game that they really like. There was just something so genuine about the people I played with, and for that reason, I really wish that I could come back and find out that one day they were able to get some closure and get their hands on the modding tools so they could fix the game that they look forward to playing with each and every week. But what do you guys think? Does this game deserve to be saved? Do you think the players deserve some sort of closure at least? Or are you going to be playing every Saturday now at 1:30 p.m. Eastern? Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And until next time, peace.
They're coming over the hill. West.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Hold on, I got you.